Great morning. Thank you so much for joining us. We're really excited to welcome you to our webinar, where we will shine the light on the digital ecosystem that can often be unseen or even difficult to understand. Our job today, and where we know we can bring you real value, will be to uncover and simplify these blind spots. Today, we'll be exploring how in the wellness space and how generative AI is shaping your brand discovery and visibility. So hi, my name is Amanda Woodley, and I'm the head of clients at Ipsos Iris. My role is really to unpick business challenges. We help provide actionable outcomes through the use of passive behavioural data. I'd also like to welcome my co-presenters, Colin and Luciano. Hi guys, can you please introduce yourselves?
Hi, I'm Colin Strong, Head of Behavioural Science here at Ipsos. My role really involves helping to understand humans, and there's kind of more complicated bits of their behaviour, and this is particularly important at times of social change and transition, of which wellness is a great example.
Luciano.
Hi, my name is Luciano Candidia, and I'm Sales Director at Ipsos Synthesio. My role is to help brands translate data from social and search, providing a foundational and ongoing pulse into consumer sentiment and behaviour, giving brands the actionable insights based on the consumer's unprompted digital voice.
Perfect, thank you both. So our plan today is to cover three key areas. So what is the new cultural meaning of wellness today? What this means for your brand and how Gen AI is shaping brand discovery, and equip you to know what the future looks like to ensure your brand is ready. So we'll be taking some questions later on. So if you want to keep in mind as we go, let me hand over to Colin, who will kick us off.
Thanks, Amanda. One of the ways in which we seek to understand behaviour, and we have many different ways, you'll be hearing of some of them this morning, but one of them is through ethnography and applied anthropology, essentially. We have been undertaking a programme of work talking to people about their lived experiences alongside experts to examine what these new cultural meanings are around wellness. And we put them together into a short documentary, and we have a short clip of that documentary to share with you now.
We can always be better. We could always be more productive. We could always have more energy. We could sleep better. We could be stronger. Each individual person becomes kind of their own project that they're expected to maintain. And what's happened is that the wellness market came and really capitalized on this idea.
In a sense, we're sort of at a perfect storm. Expensive healthcare, increasingly complex conditions, rising populism. There are different rabbit holes that people go down. And I think social media, of course, plays a major role in this.
I go on TikTok not so often, but it's begun new concerns in me that I've never had before, like having low cortisol levels.
I'd buy anything that I read that could work. I mean, I've got some ridiculous stories of the things I've bought and the things I've tried out. You do try it, and I suppose you try it until it then catches you out.
Great. Okay, so hopefully you got a sort of gist of some of the sort of themes from there, and just to perhaps sort of pull out some of the topics which we have covered in that. And we saw Josh there talking about some of the things he's bought, and it's clear through the work we've been doing is that wellness is very much sort of centered in the health space, but it is not limited to that at all. It's a much broader cultural operating system. It has implications across many categories, shaping what people eat, how people buy, what do they look like, what do they want to look like, how they sleep, parent, vote, you name it. It's the wellness sort of platform is really reshaping the way in which people are thinking about themselves, the world, and how they want to be. And of course, the products which people are buying are acting as proxies for feelings or identities. So organic baby food really indicating responsible parenting, cold plungers, discipline and grit. And there's a whole set of issues around naturalness and clean eating and natural beauty, which really carry notions of being virtuous and the broader moral weight. perhaps not surprising that people are looking for solutions in an era where people are wanting agency over their lives and control over their health and how they live. For many people, the boom in wellness is really democratizing, it's empowering. We find that in our polling in the global trends, for example, the vast majority of people are saying they want more control over their health decisions. Little wonder when perhaps in many places public health systems are struggling, and certain groups have been and continue to feel marginalized. So within that context, wellness really offers a vocabulary, as I say, of agency, of care, of healing, of aspiration, that offers hope and excitement. And if we look at the way in which this is translating into activities of different brands, we see that there's all manner of ways in which this is really being articulated and leveraged by brands. So first of all, the UK brand Park Run, at first glance you say, look, that's clearly in the wellness space. It's about people being outside, it's about being healthy, but also it's about more than that. It's about being local, it's about being inclusive, it's about having a sense of community, all indicators which tell us something about the nature of wellness. The rituals, ritual beauty, it's not just about looking good, but of course that's a big part of it, but it's also creating routines. It's about helping people feel grounded, helping people feel a control. Again, that agency theme is starting to pull out. The next example we have is Greggs, and in common with quick service restaurants, you may not necessarily always think of them at the when you think of wellness, but actually this is a different facet of wellness. This is about wellness as a challenge to the status quo, as we've got here. It's about being anti-elite. It's about feeling good shouldn't just be for the wealthy or through status, and so we can kind of see there's a sort of underdog underpinning to some of the wellness narratives that we're seeing that we consider to be important. And also alongside this, we also see wellness being positioned more as an ally. So perhaps more sort of traditional forms of authority and guidance are being set aside in terms of brands and other and peers being allies, not authorities, sort of not telling you how to live, but perhaps helping you and showing you. And so IKEA is a good example here about giving you space, how to create spaces to support your well-being. So we can talk you through all these in another forum, but we're certainly seeing wellness as a platform being increasingly comprehensive and important, and at the heart of much of this and how it's communicated and how people are how it's being facilitated is online. We're consistently seeing people are seeking guidance from non-traditional sources. Look, of course, people are continuing to access those more familiar sources. You know, half the population in the last month accessed the NHS website. Doctors remain one of the most trusted professions. But as we can see from the graph on the right-hand side, that is changing. Many are learning about health and wellness and well-being from online, from social media influencers. Clearly, as you can see here, with strong generational differences. But online being a key platform in which much of this is played out is a good point for me to hand back to Amanda.
Cool, thanks, Colin. So what does this mean in the terms of brand discovery? So how are consumers finding you in the Gen AI blind spot? But before we delve into this, as Colin mentioned, it's important that we set the online AI scene. So AI is already here and consumers are onto it. Ipsos polled over 23,000 people across 30 countries, and we know that over 50% of them are excited for products and services that use AI. And they are educated about it. So 79% say it's likely AI will be used for online search results. We've even got a consumer magazine called Improve Your Life with ChatGPT that was in the local supermarket. If that doesn't show you how mainstream generative AI has come, I don't know what else would. For brands, this means AI-powered conversational search is already part of the online fabric. Now, we're lucky at Ipsos. We have an online behavioural panel. This panel utilises passive tracking technology across devices, allows us to see real people's online behaviour. Their real interactions and journeys with brands online. I'll be using these insights to bring to life the pure scale of Gen AI and how they're being used in real life. If we start from a simple metric, reach, we see that over 21 million people in the UK are now using at least one Gen AI tool in the course of a month. So that's 41% of the total online population. Now, this is purposeful use, not people who accidentally use an AI tool without realizing, such as when you go on a price comparison site. So look, if you're a Meerkat fan, you'll know it's now powered by AI. The category is growing very quickly. It's up 150% in just over a year. The most popular tool within the category is ChatGPT, reaching almost 3 in 4 every AI users. If we take a moment to dive into ChatGPT specifically, that 77% reach, so just seen on the previous slide, represents 16 million people in the UK, so just in the month of September. And throughout this trend line, we've seen some accelerated peaks, one particular in April this year. So this is likely due to the introduction of its viral image generator capability. In the past couple of months, we've seen them launch their first large-scale brand campaign across the US, UK, and Ireland. And we'll be keeping a close eye on how this impacts engagement and drives new audiences. But speaking of audiences, who is actually using ChatGPT? It'll be no surprise that over half of those aged 15 to 24 are users of the tool. It's worth noting, though, that it's not exclusively young people. 1 in 10 users are boomers, and year on year, we've seen a triple-digit growth across all demographic groups. ChatGPT has rewritten the history books as the fastest growing consumer app. It surpassed the growth of TikTok, which reached 100 million global users in just 9 months, whereas ChatGPT only took 2 months to reach that milestone. But where does this put us on the adoption cycle? While we're still fairly near the bottom of the S-curve in the terms of a growth chart, at 41% reach of the total UK internet population, we're here. So the direction of travel is clear. It's already in the mainstream. So if it's in the mainstream, what does this look like in the terms of the wellness category? Here, we are looking at the Gen AI user and if they're engaging heavily in a particular category. Now, we define heavy engagement as the top 20% the time spent on a particular category. Across the board, Gen AI users are more likely to be spending time with health, with fitness, with nutrition and diet content. That tells us people who are using Gen AI are among the most engaged with their health and well-being. As I shared earlier, with the use of passive tracking technology, we can understand where and how people are spending their time online and the journeys that they take. This is a real example taken from the tens of thousands of journeys we capture every day. These journeys help us understand online behaviours and trends. So starting at the top left, we can see each individual step this person takes in their sports clothing journey. Starting off with search, they head to Sports Direct. Originally for t-shirts, they seem to have inspired though by some martial arts content on Sports Direct directly. This leads them into specifically looking for Muay Thai boxing shorts. So ChatGPT comes into this journey to help them find the cheapest shorts on Sports Direct rather than browsing this themselves. In this example, we're seeing ChatGPT being used as a tool to shortcut the price comparison hunt, but they ultimately go back to Sports Direct to complete their purchase. Now, as Colin shared, people are starting to take wellness into their own hands and seeking forms of guidance from non-traditional sources. In contrast to the previous journey, who used ChatGPT in quite a tactical fashion, this person is putting a lot more trust in ChatGPT. They start off with, do I need to take creatine? Not even what are the benefits or what it even is. From there, they are being introduced to collagen from Nutrition Geeks. They seem to be using ChatGPT as a source of discovery and product advice, as well as a shopping assistant, but it's more important to mention it's also alongside their own research across search and brand sites. So this is a symbiotic relationship. They're using search and brand sites to verify what they learn on ChatGPT, but then also using ChatGPT to advise on the product decision. In this rapidly developing technology race, Gen AI is fast becoming another marketing channel for your brand. So the two main questions to ask yourself are, where is your brand in terms of building knowledge and optimization of Gen AI tools? And where should you be? So I'm going to hand over to Luciano, who will zoom right into the world of GEO. So that's Generative Engine Optimisation, and why it's an industry acronym you should be taking notice of.
Thanks, Amanda. Right, so as Amanda said, to help zoom in, Ipsos has developed a proprietary approach for generative engine optimization. And here we can help brands understand what information consumers see when searching on an LLM. And for this example, we're going to focus on ChatGPT. As Amanda said, 77% of LLM users are using ChatGPT. So we'll focus on this area. And then what we'll look at, again, one really important point is that not only can we look at ChatGPT, but we can look at all LLMs such as Gemini and Anthropic. Secondly, we'll look at assessing. So we'll assess how your brand and competitors emerge on ChatGPT, and we'll look at identifying key topics and sources that are shaping your visibility. And then we'll look at how your brand can act. And we'll take data-driven action to boost your visibility within ChatGPT, ensuring you're in control of this AI-powered consumer touchpoint. Okay, so to do this, we've developed a four-step approach. Firstly, we need to build, so it's about identifying what consumers are searching for on ChatGPT, right? So we need to build a robust proxy of consumer questions by analyzing thousands of searches from social and search platforms. And this is about ensuring a realistic coverage rather than just testing with a handful of queries. Second point is that once we have that clean corpus of questions, we submit this into ChatGPT for our API, and we'll ask these questions multiple times. Now, the reason why we need to ask this multiple times is that we want to ensure that we're capturing a diverse response that's unbiased. Okay, so we want to make sure it's not focusing on one brand or one topic within the question. The third point is then we categorize the answers and then we identify the key brands. So for our proprietary topic modeling clusters, related answers into themes. So this enables us to look at brand share of voice, analyzing the unknown unknowns, and then what's shaping your category. And the fourth point is really about identifying the most relevant sources. So here we identify what levers we need to pull. Okay, so we map the sources driving ChatGPT's outputs and recommendations on which to influence, combining social and search intelligence to refine your GEO strategy. Okay, so the first point, focusing on what, obviously, from Amanda's observations before, nutrition and diet within the wellness space is accounting for 33%. So let's look at this area. And in one of the user journeys, collagen came up as a really important topic along with keratin. So as a brand, you want to understand you understand how you appear when the consumer is searching for what is the best collagen supplement in the UK. Now, to do this, as I said, we build a cluster of questions using our ability through search and social platforms. So we look at what are the types of questions that are being asked, and we'll build this proxy. So that question of what is the best collagen supplement in the UK could also be what's the easiest collagen supplement to take, what's the nicest flavour supplement to take, and so on. Once we've built these questions, we then feed them into different topics and categories. So as you can see from the next slide, we have product recommendations that are coming up as a really important topic when asking these questions. We then look at health benefits. We then look at collagen types. So what we're starting to see here is actually what the consumer is looking for when sourcing a collagen supplement. So it's important that dosage, origin of manufacturing, safety concerns. So these are the key points. So already we're uncovering some important data and information on how to approach the question. We then move on to the next point where we then feed those questions into the LLM. And once we've fed those questions into the LLM, we can then look at the responses received from the questions, and then we can place these into relevant themes as we did with our original questions. By doing this, we can identify potential gaps in what consumers are asking versus what ChatGPT is pulling in. And here you can see value for money is really important, format and taste and usability, but then product consideration factors. So this aligns really to obviously looking at recommendations, types of sources of collagen when we look at bovine collagen, goal dependent. So really important, and that just really just already we start seeing where these gaps are. Once we've done the analysis, we've looked at the topics, we've looked at the answers, we then do a deep dive in share of mentions. And as you can see, vital proteins has the highest mention at 19%. Okay, so for the purpose of this example, we're going to focus on vital proteins as the scan or as our compass scan. But just to call out, as a brand, if you ever wanted to look at any competitive brands, so for example, if Absolute Collagen was a competitor to Vital Proteins, we could also do a deep analysis on both against how they match within the LLM. Okay, so here now we can see what actually matters. So for Vital Proteins, what attributes are coming out? And we see Vital Proteins as a leader within high quality, reputable and effective brand. Okay, it's easy to absorb, it mixes well, uses bovine derived collagen. So these are the key points that ChatGPT is pulling in relation to Vital Proteins. So what does this mean now? So all of a sudden, we now see the questions that are being asked by consumers. We're seeing what are the most important topics. We're seeing what ChatGPT is pulling back on the topic, and then seeing again what the category and topics are, and then we're seeing what the ChatGPT is pulling from the sites it sources in terms of a gap analysis. So, for example, the brand looks at itself in quality and trust, which it strongly emphasized on its side and its brand messaging. And what we're seeing from the content that ChatGPT is pulling, it's strongly recognized. So there's good alignment, there's a premium and the premium message is landing. But then where we start seeing some differences, sustainability, sourcing and ethics, this is an important brand claim, but it's only being mentioned within 35% of the mentions it's pulled about the brand. So there's moderate awareness here. So there's an opportunity to reinforce sustainability credentials. But really interesting enough, when we look at science-backed credibility, Colin mentioned before, there's more of an emphasis now on influencers. So intended from the site, there's a lot of emphasis on transparency and research, but there's actually a weak perception, only 23% mentions of testing and certification. But it's under-recognized, and trust is based more now on popularity than science. So what this is building is a real strategy now in terms of how you're seen within ChatGPT or LLMs in general, and we're seeing proof and evidence on what consumers are seeing and what they're talking about. But now we start seeing an opportunity for white spaces, right? So we know that product consideration, there's Vital Proteins have a strong alignment there. Types and sources, really strong. But actually now, let's start looking at goal-dependent recommendations and evidence and dosage guidance. These are really high content areas that the LLMs are pulling, but there's no brand mention. Okay, so all of a sudden here, you need to do some work. It really shows that there is a real white space and a blind spot. But then when we look at the actual share of mentions within the prominent categories or topics, you can see if I was Vital Protein, I'd be very happy at this stage. But actually, there's a real opportunity for improvement here. And if you look at evidence and time to results and dosage and guidance, if you remember from the previous slide, there was a real low brand mention. So here there is already a quick win for Vital Proteins to refocus their strategy on evidence and time to results and dosage and guidance, which will really help them raise their profile within what the LLMs are pulling in terms of the content. And here now, we've looked at topics, we've looked at questions, we looked at responses, we looked at the alignment. Finally, the final part is actually providing the sources. So where is ChatGPT going to find its content? And we can see here it's looking at e-health websites, WebMD, for example, nutrition websites on food, corporate websites, bloggers and influence. So now you can start building a real strategy on topics, questions, categories, and now you also know the sources. On that basis, I'll pass back to Amanda.
Cool. Thanks, Luciano. Now that we've seen that all, we've deep dived, I want to sort of take you back up again. So this is a real journey, as I've shared before, but this is, I think, a really cool example, actually, to show what the actual modern consumer behavior looks like online. So we've got Gen AI for discovery, we've got search for both discovery and validation, and we've got direct brand purchase. The Gen AI is already fully integrated into the journey. But what does this mean for your marketing strategy? It's now not only about SEO, it's about GEO, so Generative Engine Optimisation. To be clear though, it's not about the battle of the acronyms. It's not one over the other. It's SEO in partnership with GEO that is a key to brand discovery and influence. It's now never been more important than ever to understand what your customers need, how they find you, and what actions they take. It's a 360-degree understanding of your brand positioning, your brand visibility, and your brand success. It's all underpinned by true customer behavior. So look, if you're now asking yourself, what does this even mean for my brand? So you can drop us a line. We're helping brands each day navigate this changing landscape. We can workshop with you to share how humans are behaving in the area of wellness as a cultural platform. We can share what online interactions we see, both for your brand and your competitors, so you know what you need to solve for. It's never been more important to unlock these blind spots. Otherwise, you may get left behind in the Gen AI race. Now, over to you. What are your blind spots? We're happy to take some questions, and please put them in the chat. We do have our mysterious voice, Oliver. So I don't know, Oliver, if you can share if we've had any questions.
Yeah, we have, and just to reiterate, let's put questions in the Q&A, and I'm sure we've got time to get around to as many as possible. The first question is around the size of the online wellness movement. How big is wellness? You know, is it all encompassing, or actually is it a very small subdivision of what the kind of global internet population is looking at? Yeah,
it's huge, and I think that's the challenge with wellness, is that, as Colin touched on, it touches many different components of how people spend their time online. You know, it could be from fitness equipment all the way through to supplements, right? It is quite broad, but I would like to say that it is something that is definitely growing, and I think the definition of that is important, and to really understand what does that look like for you and in your own wellness landscape.
Thanks. Another question, probably for Colin here. The notion of wellness as a cultural platform is interesting, but what is not wellness based on your ethnographic analysis?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. I would say that it's the notion of wellness has moved beyond the original conception of what we might think it to be, as being purely about health, purely about fitness. It has much broader implications than we may necessarily consider. And I would say I don't think that there is necessarily a consumer brand which is not touched by the changes which we're seeing in this wellness space. Just think of the example of Greg's here that we just mentioned, about the way in which there's a sort of notion of democratizing, feeling good, notions of community, notions of sort of nourishment, which for all, and in a way is a sort of slightly anti-elite sort of tone, perhaps, to some of the positioning around it. So I think if we look at wellness with a broad lens, we can see the way in which it touches pretty much every brand in different ways.
And then how can they find out more about that work?
So the work which we'd be doing, so the great thing in Ipsos is that you've got access to topics like this looked at from a whole variety of different perspectives. So we've been looking at this morning, so some of the ways in which we can get access to the digital activity that's underway, and the ethnography team here at Ipsos have been doing work and creating a documentary on this topic, which we're very keen to share and workshop with organisations that would be that are interested. So we think it's got big implications for many organisations. So do please get in touch, drop us a line, and we'd be very happy to set something up.
Brilliant. Back to Amanda maybe for this one. Just looking at the concept of gender in relation to wellness, how's that having an impact? Are we seeing, is it making an impact?
Yeah, it's actually a really good question. Like, look, I only showed just the demographic split. I could probably spend the next 35 minutes talking about the landscape when it comes to detailed demographics. So last year we actually did a study called Women in Our Data, or Our Data, if you're local in the sense, that we do actually see how the gender differences that play out online. So in the sense of just general website visitation, app visitation, we do see that play out similarly in LLMs or Gen AI tools specifically. So we unfortunately do see quite a low representation of men who visit health-related sites and content, which I think is a real challenge, and I'm sure everybody is keen to sort of be able to support our men and boys to be able to feel comfortable within this space. But as I said, we are seeing that follow the same trend within Gen AI tools. We do see from a topic perspective around wellness and health, we do see that similar trend. So maybe we kind of hoped that Gen AI people would feel comfortable, that kind of maybe more one-to-one conversational approach to maybe talk more about their health and wellness, but unfortunately we're sort of seeing that. So I think it's a large societal trend that we're seeing in everyday life is also playing out online.
Okay. Another question here coming from the chat. For brands in the wellness space that want to understand how they're represented on ChatGPT, what would that actually involve? What does getting started with this actually involve?
Yeah, great question. So it's really, firstly, it's identifying what the space is. So within the wellness space, is there a particular category that is of interest to you as a brand? Okay. So firstly, we look at that particular category and we do an analysis. So we, as I said before, we have access to search, we have access to social platforms where we can really dive deep into what consumers are searching for, what the questions, we can build those queries. And that's where we start. We do a discovery and at that point there, then we can relate that actual category and those questions to your brand. Once we know that, then obviously, as we did before, we'd run that scan, we then categorize. So looking at that particular question and the category, we then look at what was important to consumers. So within that category, we then look at the topics and then we build from there. And then we run the analysis as we just demonstrated. And obviously, happy to go into a further deeper demonstration if needed from us and the team.
Fantastic. How do people get in contact with you for further information?
It's like you've preempted my next slide. So we actually have our emails here directly. If you do want to get in touch, obviously, please reach out to us on our emails here. But I think in general, if any more questions?
There's plenty more, yeah.
Okay, I'm sure we could keep going with the questions, but I think in the time we're happy to wrap it up in the sense of we're really happy that you could have joined us today. Thank you so much for spending time with us in this webinar. We'll go through some of the questions. Maybe we can sort of reach out to you guys directly, but please drop us a note with those, and we're really happy to have a direct conversation with you and understand how Ipsos can help you navigate their landscape. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.